All right, normal intro.
Normal intro. I'm going to do it this time.
You can do it. Okay, go ahead.
All right.
Make sure you get, okay.
Welcome to Get Real with Chris and Mark. You put me first last time.
I feel so privileged that you put me first, Mark.
I like it.
Isn't that what we said?
Yeah.
So we decided this episode we're going to talk about secondary education, right?
Yes.
I mean, it's like such a big topic, though. Like, there's so much to cover.
There is a lot to cover. I'll probably
you talk about student loans and student loan forgiveness.
Student loan forgiveness, the fact that you had to take those loans in the first place, the fact that a lot of people were sold that they had to go to a 4-year school in order to get a degree so they could get a job, some of which that don't have jobs currently. Oftentimes those folks, they get the 4-year degree and they get out into the workplace, and oftentimes they're working for somebody that started that company right out of high school and has all the necessary skills for the job that they didn't necessarily get from their degree. So, I mean, those are my personal feelings flowing through.
Tell us how you feel, Mark.
Look, I dropped out of college 3 times. We talked about this.
How do you drop out of college 3 times? Tell me more about that. I want to hear about that.
You go back and chase the same girl several times.
I was going to say that's so you didn't drop out of college.
One semester, dropped out, took a semester off, went back, took a semester off, went back. But ultimately for me, I realized that I didn't need that. And that's my qualm with secondary education. Right. I think it's getting better, but I think that for a long time, kids were fed that you needed to go to college in order to be successful.
Right.
Look, I have friends that are multi-millionaires, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, right? And these guys in some cases didn't graduate high school.
Right.
So that's not what it takes to be successful. It's not all it takes to be successful. Look, you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to do something that really does require that higher education, then go do that.
I think the problem isn't the requirement to do it. It's the cost associated with it, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to learn more and educate yourself on different topics and being better at something, right? Yeah. I actually like that. I think it's powerful, right? But the problem is when you're talking about, and I just had this stat, and I actually knew this one. It's, what's the median annual to go to college right now for a 4-year college? Was
annual cost?
The annual cost. It's like $60,000 minimum. Like, that's the and you're like, $60,000 to go to school a year, right?
But I don't know that making college free is necessarily the answer either.
No, I'm not saying that.
Then what happens is then you've got to support this free college somehow, right? Which really isn't free. Somebody's got to pay for it. It's going to go onto the taxpayers' dollars, and then because it's free and it's a low bar of entry, everybody's going to go, and it's not meant for everybody.
Right.
I've always thought that the right way to fix the secondary education system is forget about 4-year degrees, forget about liberal arts and all that kind of stuff. It should be based on certifications of things that you're interested in or things that are required of specific jobs. You should be able to walk into a place and say, look, here's my line of certifications. Right, but instead you walk in and you say, hey, I have a bachelor's degree in something that has nothing to do with this job that I apply.
Topics,
I have a bachelor in art. I majored in art. It's pretty cool. I got my 4-year degree though, so I can go be an environmental specialist for Department of Natural Resources. Like what? But that's like
I can draw the turtles.
That's right. That's a horrible example, but that's what really happens. So like you should be able to walk into an establishment and say, hey, look, you guys require these certifications. I have these certificates.
Yeah, but again, Mark, none of that matters really unless if it costs what it costs, right? Like, that's the problem. I just read to you that Harvard has an endowment, one of the largest endowments in the world, right? They have a $53 billion endowment at Harvard.
That's insane.
53 billion. Actually, I read down here, and you guys pointed out, was they actually that endowment's larger than the GDP of some small countries. You know what I mean? So it's absurd.
That's insane.
Both meaning Harvard and Yale. Yale had a $42 billion endowment, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. So chump change.
Yeah.
Right. Chump change. 42 billion, 53 billion, whatever. But both of those schools have higher endowments than the GDP of Bolivia, Iceland, Paraguay, and Mali.
Wow. That's insane. So why does the school need so much money?
Well, that's the question, right? Like, why,
And why are you sitting on it instead of investing it into the kids? So my thing would be, look, I mean, if you got $53 billion saved up,
right,
you should be in some pretty big projects right now that are having massive scale and impact. Maybe they are.
Maybe they are.
Maybe
right.
they need that $53 billion nut in the background to fund whatever they have. But I venture to say that those funds could be going to a better use that directly impacts students. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we'll go viral and we'll get caught out by Harvard. But I'd love to hear what
Harvard.
Yes,
I'd love. Mark said it. I didn't.
I'd love to hear what that money's going towards, because at the end of the day, talking about student loans, we're talking about the cost of school, right? How many people could that $53 billion send to school?
Right. No.
How many student loans could it pay off?
Well, right. That's a good question. Actually,
that's a hot topic right now.
I know. I wonder how much. How much was that bill, or how much is that proposed? I forget what that number was, federally for paying off the student loans. Remember, there was like a number.
Yeah.
But $53 billion would put a hurting on it.
My frustration. Look, I don't mind necessarily the idea of the government giving money towards secondary education. Right. So if you could say, hey, I want to go to college, the government's like, oh, here's your 10 grand. You take it, use it wherever you want, and you pay the rest. Like, that's not a horrible idea.
No.
But when we get into, hey, we're just going to give everybody who hasn't paid their student loans off $10,000 towards their student loans, that bothers me.
Well, right. I mean, there's so much conflict around that right now too.
Well,
right?
it bothers
people are upset about it.
Yeah, because I paid my student loans off.
You did what you needed to do, and the expectation was that you didn't have
I think we're teaching young people the wrong thing about debt. We're teaching them that, hey, you can go irresponsibly get yourself into debt, and then don't worry, somebody's going to come pay it off for you later.
I saw a meme, and it was actually interesting. It was about the GI Bill, right? And somebody said, so I didn't have to join the Army to pay for my college.
Right.
Right? Think about that for a second, though.
I would be upset.
Yeah, I think if that's what you chose to do, I'd be upset about it too.
I don't know what the measuring stick is there, between what you get on a GI Bill versus this $10,000 or whatever. But I would surely hope that the GI Bills received a lot more than the 10,000, because if that's not the case, then I couldn't agree more.
Right.
That's just disrespectful to our veterans who put in the time to go serve our country, and then that was one of the benefits that they received. And now we're just going to give it to everybody because everybody decided to go get into debt because mommy and daddy said that you had to go to college and you had to take out loans on your own so that you could go get a good job, which often was false.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I think it still is false to some degree, right? Like, I mean, how many, as you mentioned earlier, how many people get a degree in a specific field and then go completely in the opposite direction?
All the time.
And do something that happens all the time.
And it's also because of that age, you don't necessarily know what you're going to do yet. So if you had the ability to dabble down different paths, dabble in this trade school, dabble in the arts a little bit, but you want to know one of the major reasons that I dropped out of college? It's because the first year of college is what?
What do you mean, basics?
General studies.
General studies, yeah.
I'm not interested in learning to write a 20-page paper.
Right.
Look, I've been in business for 13 years. I've never had to write a 20-page paper one time.
You ever used the Pythagorean theorem, Mark?
No. Okay. No.
But, not once.
And I'm not saying that I shouldn't have to take a business writing class, that talks about writing letters, business letters, stuff in the pro. But you should be able to take class in what you are interested in, and you shouldn't be forced to go through this rigmarole of this other stuff to get to where you want to go. You should be able to march down a path at a lower cost in the beginning to explore if it's right for you. And better yet, I mean, you should get thrown right into it. I mean, you should get some harsh realities of what that looks like. That leads me to my other issue with secondary education, is that in some cases, the people that are teaching this stuff have never done it.
Well, that's a real fact. That's actually a fact in many cases. And they're teaching content that maybe isn't their primary field, but
But they're and look, no disrespect to
absolutely.
teachers and
None
professionals
of
out
that,
there.
right?
Like that is not the idea here. It's just that our system is flawed, and maybe there should be tax incentives around mentorship.
Yeah.
Maybe if you and I, got a tax incentive to pull somebody under our wings.
No, absolutely.
And then show them how to be a successful business person,
Right.
Or an artist got a tax incentive to be able to pull somebody under their wing and show them how to paint better, or better yet, how to not just paint, but sell their product and make it popular and all those different things. So I just think there's other ways that need to be explored of how we encourage our young people down paths that are the right paths for them.
I just think that the cost has been so prohibitive to someone to, let's be real. I don't have a degree, right? Just to put it out there, I don't have one, right?
I don't judge you for that, by the way.
I'm good, right? Like I'm good. I'm fine.
Doing
right?
all right.
I went to actually, as a side note, I attended Calvert Community College.
Okay.
Prior to their annexing in with Charles County Community College.
To create College of Southern Maryland.
College of Southern Maryland, right.
Hey, maybe I'm disconnected. Maybe a lot of what I'm talking about.
I know you're disconnected, Mark, but no.
It's true. I mean, you're right. I am. I definitely am, because
I'm really disconnected.
I haven't applied
but
to
you're
a school. Like, I haven't done any of that stuff recently. So maybe some of what I'm talking about already exists. I mean, I haven't seen it show up in the real world. I haven't heard it from the young people that I've spoke with. But maybe some of it already exists. I just think that there are better ways in our current secondary education system. I think that a lot of it's about money. I think that a lot of it's about raising money. I mean, with a $53 billion endowment, that gives you a heck of a lot of power. That much money gives you a lot of power.
Right.
And I don't know that power is necessarily used to benefit the student.
I think you're absolutely right. So I wanted to see what it costs to go to Harvard for a year. That'd be very interesting to see. Like, you know what I mean? Let's see.
Sign me up.
I know, especially with a $53 billion endowment.
Right.
It should be free. They can't. Right. I mean, they should be paying the students to attend.
Right. Exactly.
Right?
But it's funny because that's just the nature of creating that elitist mentality, right? Like this is the elite place to be. By the way, great business example. I'm going to shift gears and stop throwing shade for a second, but great business example, right? Way to be elite and have somebody essentially come pay you 10 times the amount.
Right.
For essentially the same thing. You know what I mean?
When I started in the home building business, one of the incentives that the builder that I worked for, they were actually a British company and they were here. And one of the things that they did, which I thought back then was really good for me, was they were empowered. They had me work with the carpenter for 30 days. So I was a carpenter for 30 days. Let me tell you, I humped lumber back then, moving it up, throwing it up in the, whatever. And we worked for the brick mason for 30 days.
Nice.
And I worked for the electrician for 30 days and the plumber for 30 days. So the education that you get
in the field.
That's field education. That was so powerful. Let me tell you, that was knowledge that you could use and practical applications.
I don't know if I can talk about this on the air, but my dad works for a federal agency. Okay. And this just it
Got it.
reminded me of this. So
we won't tell anybody, Mark.
But somebody came in, that has all the degrees and and now they're the new director of said federal agency, and now they're changing it where they no overtime. So they're coming off of they were working overtime like crazy to meet quotas that they needed to meet, and now this person comes in and says no more overtime.
Okay.
So even if two people are required to do one task and one doesn't show up, the one will have to sit there and do nothing for their entire shift, and nobody else is allowed to come in and work overtime in that spot. So it speaks to, like, if you don't have the real idea, you can have all the degrees in the world, but if you don't have a real idea of what's happening inside of the machine, you can never be the one to fix it or run it. And again, I think that circles back to the secondary education system, right? Our job world and the secondary education system says that this person, because they have all of these degrees, is capable of doing this task, and they're totally not capable.
Right.
I mean, they are. In this case, it's perfectly okay because it's government dollars, and who cares how much tax money is wasted?
Private industry wouldn't have that, though, right?
No,
that's the
not
thing.
at all.
No
private industry would ever have somebody making $100 an hour, sitting in a chair, literally staring at their phone for 8 hours.
Well, that's definitely another podcast, right? Like when we talk about some of that stuff that goes on. Because I'm sure that's another podcast because we could actually talk about
abuse.
And that's
the abuse and
we
waste
both come from private
dollars.
industry a little bit, so I
Yeah.
think I get it. So back to Harvard. Harvard, after aid, which means aid includes grants, scholarships, which probably is from those endowments, right?
Maybe.
From the institution, from state and federal government aid, right? So is only $13,872 a year. Average cost is $75,000 a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I don't think I was expecting worse than that. To be
I was
honest with
expecting
you.
it to be more.
Yeah, I was too. Well, they got a $53 billion endowment they can pay.
So maybe they are subsidizing.
Maybe they
it.
are, and I don't know it. Right?
Can we get a breakdown? Harvard, can you send us the breakdown?
Can you send us?
I just looked at the microphone as if like I was
Like
talking to
Harvard?
Harvard. Yeah. Hey, Harvard. Can
Hey,
you
with
send us that
$53
breakdown?
billion, they're going to send you a breakdown, all right, with a legal notice.
Exactly. Yeah. A cease and desist.
Cease and desist.
Here's your breakdown now. Shut
Shut
up.
up. That's funny.
No. There's one more thing I wanted to touch on this subject, and that is the fact that going back to everybody, being fed that you got to get a 4-year degree to get into a job and all that kind of stuff. And I think that what's happened to a lot of folks is that they went and got the 4-year degree. They came out, maybe when they were getting the degree, they still didn't figure out who they were. And then it was like, I really just need to get a job. And then they land into a job, and the job may not be something that they're passionate about. And essentially, I think that, again, lowering the barrier of entry and allowing people to dabble, or students, young folks, to dabble in certain things that they do have interest in, to find one that they are passionate about that they can truly pursue.
Right.
I think ultimately we end up with a population and a country of happier people. Because
of course you would.
So many people, in my opinion, are just doing mundane jobs that they do not necessarily like and they're not passionate about because of the path that they took to get there. And I think that we need to encourage a path of people's passions.
I really can't agree with you more. I think that's a topic that, and that's why we wanted to talk about it. We brought it up in the
Yep.
first week. This was something we wanted to bring up. This isn't necessarily, college isn't for everyone.
Yep.
It's not. And I will say, before we close out again, I will say that I've seen a trend towards more trade-oriented education, right? I've seen that especially in the last few years, a little bit more of that, I think.
Yeah. I think it's coming. The
I
trade
think so,
schools are
too.
coming up. And so speaking to that, some of the wealthiest people that I know, own trade companies. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I know guys that make a lot of money, doing just that. So, and especially in order to make the same kind of money going the collegiate route, to make the same kind of money as people that get their hands dirty every day running their own businesses,
Right.
you would have to climb the ladder almost to the top. So you and I probably make more money than some CEOs.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And we don't have a 4-year degree.
No, that's right.
So that's, so look, if you're young and you're discouraged and you don't know what to do, or you feel like you can't get through college or any of that stuff, you can do whatever you want. And you can make money. You can find a way to make money at it. You can find something that you're passionate about. But it does take a lot of energy and effort. It does take a lot of energy and effort.
does.
It's not going to be easy. Nobody's going to give you a pat on the back and a rubber stamp and hand you a check that's 7 figures.
Right.
If you want that, you got to go get it and put in the
Right.
work.
All right, so close out. We always want to close out with a fascinating real estate fact. I was looking for a college fact. I didn't find one, but
Real estate's good. We do that from time to time.
I have a good one, and I think it's something that maybe will lead into another topic later that we can talk about.
Cool.
In the United States, there are 5 times as many vacant houses as there are homeless people.
What?
In the United States, there are 5. I don't know where the stats from. Truth Dig. How's that? In the United States, there are 5 times as many vacant houses as there are homeless people.
I think I just found a new passion.
It's pretty good, right?
How do we go get all those houses and put the homeless
I'm with
people
you.
into it?
I like it.
Let's do it.
All right, so Mark, how do you find us, Mark?
Oh, no. So you can find us at thebaynet.com/podcast. You can find us on the Baynet's Facebook page. You can find us on YouTube, on Spotify. And Chris told me last week that you can find us on Amazon Music.
I swear we were there.
Yes,
So,
that's awesome.
Anyway.
Good stuff. Well, look, hopefully you guys enjoy this. And you know what? I think on our next episode,
Yeah.
we need to get an email address So we need to talk to these Baynet folks and see if we can get an email address where we can receive all of our hate mail.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
That'll give us some topics.
No, I
too.
mean, I think it's important. And to close out that, we want, if you have information or have topics that you want to talk about, please just tell us about it.
We're not that hard to find.
No, contact the Baynet. Put it on one of our posts. You can find us for sure.
Yeah.
And we'd be happy to share a topic that you're passionate about, and let's talk about it. And
And if you've listened this far, share this podcast.
Yes.
And we will have a contest between the people that share this podcast. We will draw a name, and that person will get a $100 Amazon gift card.
So thanks, Mark. You said you would surprise us, so that's a good surprise. Yeah.
That's it. We'll see if anybody listens to the end.
Yeah, you got to listen to the very end, so let's see who does.
All right.
All right, see you next week.